Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Locke. Welcome to Gaffer and Gear. If you own one of these compact Nanlite 60 lights, you're going to be very interested in today's episode because we're having a look at the projector mounts. Now, if you don't know what a projector mount is, let me very quickly catch you up. Projector mounts allow you to do very fine detailed lighting, such as precise cutting of light and even gobo projections. So let's take a look. Alright, so let's get straight into the pros and cons and start off with the pros. Alright, so it does look like it's plasticky, but when I was using it, I was very surprised at how easily everything moves around without lubrication. It's very fine movements, everything's smooth, and how lightweight it is and how robust it is. So it's actually made of nylon. So the advantages with the nylon, apart from having really smooth surfaces in terms of adjusting your optics, is it transfers heat very, very well. So this thing does not get hot. Even if you've got very fine opening in your slits here, it will not get hot. And the other advantage is with it being a nylon construction is it is so incredibly lightweight. This thing really is very, very light. You could put this on the end of a C-stand arm, for example, and you wouldn't have a problem with the weight. So I'm very impressed with that. The next thing that impresses me is the positioning of the blades. Okay, the blades all act separately to each other and they don't interfere with each other, but they are close enough that they're on the same focal plane. So on some other projectors, your side barn doors might be a different focal point to your top and bottom barn doors. Not the case with this. And the next thing that really surprised me was when I took the lens barrel out and had to look through it. It is actually coated glass. So I was really surprised at that level of detail. All right, so let's get into the negatives now. And the big negative for me is the gobo holder. If you're looking to buy this and you've had a look at it online, you would have seen a lot of sellers saying that this thing takes a size B gobo. Well, this is a size B gobo and it doesn't fit. It's a little bit too big. So, okay, maybe it's an M series gobo, which is the next most common gobo in film and television lighting. That's too small. So I was a bit surprised by this. So I had a look at their gobos that come with the unit, and I measured these up, and they're 75mm diameter from edge to edge. Now, as far as I can tell, that's not a standard, and I can't find any 75mm gobos anywhere. Now, the 4 gobos that come with this unit aren't too shabby, but as a professional lighting guy, I find it very disappointing that this unit doesn't fit the hundreds of gobos that I already have, or the thousands of gobos that are available on the market. Now, I'm getting around this by taping my M series gobos into the gobo holder because I really want to use this unit. It is a knockout unit in so many regards, it's worth going to the effort. So I'm hoping that somewhere down the track, Nanlite release an M series gobo holder. All right, now the next negative for me is that you can't rotate the barrel. So the problem with that is if you stick a gobo in and you haven't got it perfectly aligned, you have to take it out, realign it and drop it back in. However, there is another workaround because this unit is so lightweight. I would suggest getting a grip head or something that enables you to tilt the whole light. All right, so before we get into how much they cost and what you get for your money, at the moment they only come in 2 beam diameters. So you get a 19 degree or you can get a 36 degree. Now, at the moment they're sold in complete kits during the initial rollout, but later on you will be able to buy the individual barrels. All right, so these sell for about 430 Australian dollars. That's around 300 US bucks. Now for that money you get the bag, which seems extremely oversized for such a small projector, but I figured out that you can actually fit the light in here and a power supply should you just want to carry one bag around. Now you get your projector mount with a choice of lens barrel, and you get a gobo holder. You also get 4 gobos, so Venetian blind, a dapple pattern, whatever that's meant to be, and a tree I'm thinking that is. And you also get a gel holder. So very quickly cover the gel holder. So if you want to put a color on the light, that just goes into the front. So unscrew the front, connect in, and there you go. We've covered this now. We don't have to talk about it ever again. All right, so let's go through a bit of a run through in case you've never used one of these before. All right, so your light mounts onto the back, real simple. How easy is that? Now, before you turn your light on, here's a trap for new players. You've got these blades in here that cut your beam. You want to open those up, okay, before you turn the light on. Otherwise, all the light is getting trapped on the blade. So that's a trap for new players. So we'll work our way forwards. Okay, so the blades I'll explain now. So they're your light shapers. So you don't put barn doors on the front because barn doors won't cut the beam. So if I try to do that with my hands, I'll just get this in focus. If I try to do that with my hands, it doesn't cut the beam, it just reduces the light because the focus isn't here at the end of the lens here. The focus point's here, okay, where the cutters are. So the cutters are upside down and back to front, okay. So top one is your bottom cutter, okay. Bottom one is your top cutter. Left is right and right is left. So you can move those around to shape your light. Okay, so very, very straightforward. Once you get the hang of the whole upside down and back to front thing, you'll be doing it like that. All right, now in terms of focusing the unit, on the front here, you undo the screw and your barrel moves around, okay? So the barrel, moving that forwards and backwards, is what focuses and defocuses your light. All right, so I'm just going to turn this off for a sec. Now, let's say further down the track, you have more than one barrel. Well, if you want to change your lens barrels over, so let's say we want to take off the 19-degree lens, we just undo that, pull out the 19-degree lens, and we put in a 36-degree lens. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, so let's get into using a gobo. Okay, so you got your gobo holder, you got your gobo, you slip your gobo into the gobo holder, and then put the gobo into the gobo slot. All right, now here's the catch with the gobo slot here. Most projector mounts are a bit bigger than this, and they have a separate slot for the iris, which is another accessory you can get, and a separate slot for the gobo holder. This has one slot for both. So how they get around the size difference is in the bottom of the gobo holder, there's a little slit that the base here falls into, and then this part here is sprung forwards, so it stops the gobo from moving around. So you've got to find that slot. So easy way to think about it is the leaf here, the spring, faces the lens. Okay, so let's push that in. Okay, and there we go. So that's now in place. And let's fire up and have a look. Takes a little bit of time for the computer to boot. There we go. All right, now I'm going to try and get that into focus. And there we go. We've got a gobo projection. All right, so if you're having a hard time getting the whole gobo into focus, what you do is you try and find the center and then lock the barrel. Okay, if you don't do that, you might have a slight bit of difference in focus top to bottom because without the barrel locked, see the front here sags down a little bit, droops, that affects your optics. And when I lock it off, the barrel locks into place. So if you can't get your an even focus across or an acceptable focus across, just get the middle focused and then lock the barrel. All right, now you can also use the cutter blades with the gobo. Okay, so let's put a cut into that gobo. Okay, and there you are. Now here's the catch though. All right, so at the moment we've got the gobo in focus. Okay, so the gobo is sitting here and the blades are sitting just a little bit back. All right, they're not on the same focus plane. All right, so that's the same with all projectors. It's not just unique to this. So what I'm getting at is we can have the gobo in focus, or we can have the blades in focus, but we can't have both. That's just a problem with physics. Now, while we're talking about focus, here's a fun fact. Okay, so you've got your gobo here. We can focus further back and get the blades in focus. Now, if we've got a really tight aperture on our blades and our focus is further back this way, or if we've got tight patterns on our gobo, you can actually start getting the color emitters on the LED light itself projected. Now, that's normal on all bicolor and RGB lights. So it's just a little thing I want to point out because if you're buying a whole system or you're renting, there is an advantage to having the monocolor. Because the monocolor is one solid block of light, you don't get that patterning happen. So you can go a little bit more out of focus than you can with a bicolor or a full RGB unit. Now, before we go any further, I better give a big thank you to Protog, who are the Australian distributors, for getting us this gear to review. All right, so one question I'm constantly asked is, should I get the 19-degree barrel or the 36-degree barrel? Well, that depends on what you're going to be using it for. If you're, say, doing corporate interviews, you've got somebody sitting down, you've got a wall behind them and you want to put the pattern on the wall, I would get the 36-degree beam because that gives you a nice wide spread. If you want to throw the light a long distance, so say you're using it at nighttime and you want to pick things out in a wide shot and have the light far enough away that it's out of shot, I would go the 19-degree barrel. So I'll be showing you some stuff with that later on. Now, I only have the 19-degree barrel for testing and I only have the bicolor lights. That's all I have. So let's get into the testing. So the first thing I chuck on is a square gobo pattern. So what I'm looking for here is any concaving or any convexing in the lens. Now what appears to be a little bit of concaving here is actually my camera. Now I check along the black lines to see if we've got any chromatic aberration or any color fraying. This is more prevalent on the edges of the beams, and this happens because the light waves, instead of being magnified, are being stretched. Now there is some very, very slight chromatic aberration here, but it's not going to be evident when you're filming. And I have to say, it's far better than the vast majority of lenses that are out there. The next thing I do is I check for aberration forwards and backwards of the focus point. So if I'm using this to light an actor, for example, and they take a step forward, are they suddenly going to get a face full of aberration? And I do the same test on the edge of the beam where the chromatic aberration is going to be at its worst. The next gobo I chuck in is a circular pattern. So what I'm doing here is making sure that all the circles are round and they should be evenly spaced apart. Now on wider beam angle lenses, you do tend to get some uneven spacing towards the edge of the beam. However, this 19-degree lens is performing extremely well. On the next test, I throw those circles in and out of focus. And what I'm checking for here is that the bicolor light isn't giving me too much projection of the light emitters. And with this 19-degree lens, even with the bicolor light, we've got plenty of range to focus and defocus. Now, one thing that can be a problem with bicolor lights is the checkerboard formation of the LED emitters. Now, if the emitter pattern isn't small enough, when you do a 45-degree cut, you can create lines of emitters. So what I do is I get a line pattern, put it at 45 degrees, and then throw it out of focus. Now at some point, the emitter is going to project lines. So what I'm checking for is that we've got enough focus range for this not to be an issue. The next thing I use is a very fine random gobo pattern. What I'm checking for on this is overall sharpness and chromatic aberration. The next thing I do is throw this out of focus, and I would expect at some point that all of these fine holes and lines will act like pinhole cameras and project the pattern of the emitters forwards. What I'm checking for is I've got enough range to actually use a gobo like this creatively out of focus. Now, while we're here, I'm just going to show you one of my hacks, one of the things I use a gobo like this for. If you can throw it out of focus enough, it acts like hundreds of random light sources, and it can create a very convincing wet window or water shadow effect. Okay, so the last thing I checked was the brightness. Now bear in mind, this is 19 degrees. It's a very concentrated beam. So even though we've only got 60 watts back here, it is concentrated down to a very intense beam. All right, so set to 5,600 Kelvin at a distance of 3 meters, I got 3,840 lux. Now to give you some idea of a comparison, that's roughly the equivalent of a 575 HMI in flood. All right, so let's take this outside and see what it can do. So the first thing I decided to do was try and light up my neighbour's letterbox. Just the letterbox, nothing else around it. So what's the big deal with this? Well, I'm doing it from 35 meters away. My light is still in my workshop. Now the next thing I thought I'd do was illuminate a street sign. Just the street sign and nothing else. Now I could do this quite easily from the other side of the street. Next I wanted to see how this would go on a night shoot. In particular, using it to highlight things in the background or get background elements to stand out. So I tried lighting a row of shrubs, just the shrubs and nothing else. Then I thought I'd try this backlighting the swings, seeing if I could get the light far enough away it would be out of shot and still have enough control that it doesn't light anything else up in the scene. Then I tried putting a kick or a scratch light onto the local play equipment without the light hitting the ground. Next up, I wanted to see if I could light a tree the other side of the football oval. Again, isolating the tree and not lighting the ground in front of it. This is something you can't do with a Fresnel or a PAR light. Then I wanted to have a play with the shadow qualities. Okay, so that's the Nanlite 60 projection mount. Next week's episode should be on the dynos. Okay, catch you later.